Hey guys, the Firebreaker is here. It's just me. My brother is not here like always, and I'll be honest, I think Revenge of the Fallen is a masterpiece and I don't get why everyone hates it. There, these are the jokes. There are not refunds available. Unless you're Cliff Jumper, you get half a refund. Too soon. I need to stop making these jokes, people are getting really mad. Anyways, all these tasteful jokes aside, today I'm doing part 2 to my previous video where I talked about all cancelled and missing characters from the Transformers Prime TV show. So it's been about 4 hours since I uploaded my previous video by the time of this recording, and the video is actually doing quite well. Like, I wasn't expecting it to do this good. So I guess I'm gonna do a part 2 now, see if, the same success replicates. I doubt it, but it's still gonna be pretty fun. So anyways, much like last time, I'm gonna be talking about characters that didn't make it onto the TV show because they were either in the comics, the toy line, games, or other stories. I'm also gonna be going over cancelled characters from War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron because why not? I'm not gonna be going over Robots in Disguise, however, because we don't talk about robots in disguise. But anyways, so unlike last time where I, cover all the characters a bit quicker and I kind of explain their stories in a very short way, this time I'm gonna give a bit of an explanation. I'm not gonna give too much because I don't want to fill too much of the video with just explanations. But for characters like Grimlock, I am gonna give a bit of a longer explanation. For some other characters like Toyline exclusive characters or game characters, I'm gonna give them a very short description because they're honestly pretty easy to explain. So now that you know what you're in for, sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, some soda, your pillow waifu. I'll grab my pillow waifu. And let's begin talking about all the cancelled and missing characters on Transformers Fall of Cybertron, War for Cybertron, and the Prime TV show. It's not gonna be in order, by the way. Spoilers. Duh. First off, we have Skywarp. Status: killed in action. He was originally gonna appear in the Transformers Prime TV show, but unfortunately his role was given to the Decepticon Skyquake, which I think it was for the better, because Skyquake, the way he acted on the show, it's not really that much like Skywarp would act. Also, you guys might be wondering, why is he killed in action? Well, in the Transformers novel Retribution, it's actually confirmed that while he was hunting the Autobots through space, he was killed by Sharkticons. Much like Skywarp, Lugnut was another character that was supposed to make it onto Transformers Prime, but unfortunately his role was switched. In the episode Deus Ex Machina, instead of Breakdown appearing, it was supposed to be Lugnut, but unfortunately he was replaced by Breakdown because the show staff wanted to have a Decepticon with a terrestrial vehicle mode instead of a flying vehicle mode. His current whereabouts are unknown. Pandemic was a Decepticon who was part of the crew of the Leviathan. He engaged on many battles against the Autobots, and he was well renowned for his fierce fighting style and his weaponization of diseases to weaken his opponents and at times even kill them. However, the Transformers Universe game where he came from was cancelled by Hasbro, and considering the Transformers Universe was supposed to serve as a prequel for Transformers Prime, alongside the fact that the game was shut down by Hasbro, we're most likely never gonna see him and many other members of the Transformers Universe cast. So expect a lot of missing in action and kill in action Autobots and Decepticons from this game. Because although they were not killed on screen, you could pretty much say that Hasbro killed them. Monsoon was an Autobot warrior who served alongside the crew of the Arclight. Using his machine guns, he loved to rain down destruction onto his enemies. He was one of the strongest Autobots around. Sadly, the game where he came from was shut down by Hasbro and we're likely never gonna see him again. So he's gonna be listed as KIA and M.I.A. Decepticon Firebreaker specialized in recon, stealth, and hacking. But more than anything, he loved to capture Autotroopers and used them to entertain himself and his fellow Decepticons in makeshift fighting arenas that he will host. His current whereabouts are also unknown. Overclock was an Autobot that served alongside the crew of the Arclight. He's a master spy and engaged in many battles on behalf of the Autobots during the early Decepticon invasion. His current whereabouts are also unknown. Next up, we got Grimlock. Grimlock was killed by the explosion during the events of Fall of Cybertron, when he attacked Shockwave and tried to shut down his space bridge. However, lucky for the guy, the other Dinobots managed to rescue him and revive him. After that, he and the other Dinobots remained on Cybertron, trying to offer protection to many of the Autobot refugees that were left behind. During his stay on Cybertron, he engaged on many battles against Decepticons and the rising Predacons that came from Shockwave's lab. Eventually, the Autobots managed to revitalize the planet, and Grimlock met up with them. Together, the Dinobots and Prime's Autobots started making plans to rebuild Cybertron. The reason why he didn't make it onto the show, at least for story purposes, is because he was stuck on Cybertron. And no, before you ask, the Robots in Disguise Grimlock is not the same Grimlock, it's a different Grimlock. I know, it's very confusing. After the events of Fall of Cybertron, Sludge was found by an Autobot cleanup crew, and he was also revived, much like Grimlock. He will later join his fellow Dinobots, and together they will help save many Autobot refugees, alongside having a mini Beast Wars against the Predacons on Cybertron. He will later be blacklisted by the High Council by the time of Robots in Disguise. Swoop again survived the entirety of the war and accompanied the Dinobots on their war against the Predacons on Cybertron. Much like his previous comrade, he will also be blacklisted by the High Council by the time of Robots in Disguise. Slug also survived the war for Cybertron, and he will become some sort of liaison between the Dinobots and other Autobot communities on Cybertron. He will also fight against the Predacons and eventually survive all the way to Robots in Disguise, where he will be later blacklisted by the High Council. Again, much like the previous Dinobots, he survived all the way to Robots in Disguise to be blacklisted and accompany them on many battles against Shockwave's Predacons. All the Dinobots here basically didn't make it for the same reason Grimlock didn't make it onto the show. They were stuck on Cybertron, and also I don't think there were any plans for any of these characters to be on the show, although they did gain that small nod by Bulkhead during the early episodes of Transformers Beast Hunters. Next up we have Autobot Ironhide. Ironhide made a couple of appearances in the Tourmaline and in the Transformers Universe game, which will later end up being cancelled. The reason why Ironhide didn't make it onto the show is because the show writer said that since Ironhide died in Transformers Dark of the Moon, they didn't want to confuse little kids with a new Ironhide here, just being alive and well. Which, it's kinda bizarre since Megatron died in Dark of the Moon, and we basically have another Megatron in Transformers Prime, same with Starscream, Soundwave and so on, so this excuse seems kinda bizarre to me, but as you can guess, Ironhide here was replaced by Bulkhead. Next up we have Decepticon Diabla. She's one of the most fiercest and most lethal Decepticons that were part of the crew of the Leviathan. Her two arm blades were basically coated with cosmic rust, making her one of the deadliest opponents to go up against. However, much like the previous Transformers Universe characters, she was killed by Hasbro. Autobot Triage was one of Ratchet's friends and allies during the early invasion of the Decepticons. He served alongside the front lines, healing his fellow Autobots. Sadly, much like the rest, his current whereabouts are also unknown. Next up we have Decepticon Flatline. Lore-wise, he's probably the strongest Decepticon from Transformers Universe. He basically was a worshipper of Unicron, and it's because of this connection that Flatline was one of the most powerful Decepticons around, being able to control the weather and even be able to manifest Unicron's wings. However, this awesome character was also killed by Hasbro. Macro was an Autobot who specialized on hit and run tactics. He was one of the trickiest Autobots to fight against during the early Decepticon invasion because he was so difficult to catch, and he always seemed to have a way to escape almost any situation. Current whereabouts are unknown. Next up we got Autobot Moonracer. We have very little information about her, but she did make a cameo in Robots in Disguise, as well as making an appearance in the Covenant of Primus. Supposedly she didn't make it onto the Transformers Prime TV show because they wanted to keep the amount of female Cybertronian characters limited. Henceforth, why we only got one female Autobot and one female Decepticon. However, she did survive all the way to the events of Robots in Disguise, and she was also part of the Wreckers. Impactor was the leader of the Wreckers. He led them on several missions and even helped the Autobot civilians evacuate shortly after the events of Follow Cybertron. However, thanks to Wheeljack in the episode Loose Cannons, we know that he died sometime after. So the reason why he wasn't on the show is because he died. Autobot Pyro was part of the Wreckers. We don't know too much about him, but all that we know is that Wheeljack mentioned that he was killed sometime during the war. Rack and Ruin were two Autobots that were merged together by Shockwave as one of his experiments. The two of them joined the Wreckers in order to retaliate against Shockwave. They eventually succeeded at getting their revenge on Shockwave when they destroyed one of his labs, humming happily while doing it. Autobot Roadbuster also helped during the evacuation of the remaining civilians on Cybertron. However, he was later killed off screen. His death was mentioned and confirmed by Wheeljack. Autobot Rodimus was part of the Ark during the events of Follow Cybertron. After escaping to the space bridge, he accompanied the Autobots throughout their journey through space. Sadly, we don't know too much about him after these events. However, we do know that he survived all the way to Robots in Disguise, where he was blacklisted by the High Council. At some point, he also became an official member of the Wreckers. And if you're wondering why he didn't make it onto the Transformers Prime TV show, the answer is quite simple. Bumblebee. Bumblebee exists. Autobot Showdown was an Autobot that transformed into a monster truck. Bet you didn't see that coming. He was known for his explosive entrances into the battlefield, and he was overall one of the fiercest Autobots to go up against. Current whereabouts? Unknown. Decepticon Rampart was a Decepticon who had tough armor plating, making him one of the most durable Decepticons around. He also engaged into quite a few dealings with Swindle. Sadly, he was killed by Hasbro. Autobot Ripclaw was probably the strongest Autobot by the time of Transformers Universe, most likely second to Optimus Prime in terms of power. He was one of the toughest and most dangerous Autobots to go up against. He was also a bit of a pyromaniac. Unfortunately, he's currently M.I.A. Decepticon Drive-By was part of the crew of the Leviathan during the early invasion of the Decepticons to Earth. He engaged in many battles against the Autobots, and he was feared by them due to his use of Cosmic Rust as a weapon. Current whereabouts? Unknown. Springer was a character that was meant to appear in Transformers Follow Cybertron, but sadly this never came to fruition. Concept art of him can be found on the Art of Transformers Follow Cybertron book. He was probably not added because he was a triple changer, and they didn't want to deal with a triple changer endgame. However, lore-wise he was part of the Wreckers and survived all the way to the events of Robots in Disguise, where he was blacklisted by the High Council. Autobot Rollerstorm was part of the Wreckers. Not much is really known about him, except that he fought against Devastator at one point. However, in Transformers Prime, Wheeljack will later mention that he died at some point during the war for Cybertron. Autobot Topspin was another Wrecker that participated on many dangerous missions during the war. However, not much is known about him, and his current whereabouts are unknown. Twintwist was another member of the Wreckers. He participated on many battles during the war for Cybertron. His current whereabouts are unknown, and there is not that much information about this guy. All that we know is that he doesn't like Whirl very much. Speaking of, we have Autobot Whirl. It's not the same Whirl, it's a different Whirl. I know, it's very confusing. He was also a member of the Wreckers, but however his personality left much to be desired. Almost all of his fellow Wreckers didn't like him very much, and they basically consider him to be the main reason as to why they didn't want to combine into Ruination. And now that we covered all the Wreckers, we can move on to Ruination. Ruination is the combination of Autobots Impactor, Topspin, Whirl, Roadbuster, and Twintwist. The reason why these characters didn't make it onto the show is because they were not only just repaints of the Combaticons, but at the same time, adding a combiner to the show would be too expensive, so Ruination and his little team of Wreckers were ultimately left out of the show. Autobot Doubletake was a police enforcer and former Decepticon who got disillusioned by their cause and joined the Autobots. And apparently him and Prowl get along quite well. Geesh, I wonder why. His current whereabouts are unknown. Decepticon Hotwire was a money-hungry Decepticon arms dealer with a list of black market contracts. He was said to be on par with Swindle and the amount of objects that he had for sale. He was part of the crew of the Leviathan and also served on countless battles as a field medic for the early invasion of the Decepticons to Earth. However, he's currently missing in action. And yeah guys, that's it for today because oh my god, do I have a lot to edit. So I would say that as of this episode we're halfway there. We're talking about all the Transformers Prime, Follow Cybertron and War for Cybertron characters. But oh my gosh, there's so many. So part 3 will definitely happen, and as for part 4, I'm not that sure, maybe, we'll see. But anyways guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit me up with a like. The last episode got a lot of support, which I'm super happy about, that I get to talk about something that's, you know, just not related to the movies, which is a nice change of pace. If this video gets a similar support or as close as it can get, then I will release part 3 as soon as it's ready. So yeah, like, comment and subscribe, you know the drill. Let me know your thoughts on these unused characters, these cancelled characters, and these characters that overall went missing after their respective media. Did you learn something new? Did you not learn something new? Did I miss any characters? If I did, feel free to mention them. I might cover them in part 3, and if I miss any, I probably cover them in part 1. You can go check that video out, link's gonna be in the description down below. So, I'll see you all in the next video. And remember, if the Decepticons don't kill you, Hasbro will.